call the meeting to order, the Board of Selectmen at 6 p.m. Could we all stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the November 4th meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from November 4th, 2019.
I'll second.
Second. Any questions on the minutes? I will note that Mr. Bork is on a conference call right now. He's unable to attend the meeting, so he is attending via conference. Any questions?
I was just wondering, Courtney, did you add to the fact on the Selectmen's letter?
Oh, we discussed that. I haven't just added that
Okay.
Just yet.
What I was asking is, we had talked about, do the Selectmen need a letter to the DPW for the signage of support? And
That was in the minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor of the minutes, please say aye.
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 Abstain.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, we have a unanimous with one abstention. Next item on the agenda is the swearing in of Officer Francesca Sedono as a Webster police officer. So I'm going to welcome you up here, and we'll have the chief come on up as well, please.
Evening. So it gives me great pleasure to present to you Officer Francesca Sedono. Francesca lives in Webster, graduated from Bartlett High School. Now Francesca's kind of a unique story. She came to us with an interest in becoming an auxiliary police officer way back, maybe about a year and a half ago. So we sponsored her for the academy. She paid for it out of pocket herself. And in that time, she was hired as a full-time police officer. So she finished the part-time academy, and shortly thereafter, she started the Western Mass Police Academy in June. She just graduated November 8th, and she's currently undergoing her field training, which is going to last about 12 weeks. She's fluent in Spanish. She lives here, like I said, she lives here in town. She has 2 children. She's going to be pinned by her husband in Mosaic.
Great. Officer Sedono, welcome to the town of Webster.
Thank you, sir.
I think we've got our town clerk here, Mr. Craver, to swear you in an official pinning.
All set?
Raise your hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon you as a member of the Webster Police Force according to your best abilities and understandings, agreeable to town bylaws and the laws of the Commonwealth of South Carolina? Congratulations.
We'll just wish you well.
Let's shake your hand.
Congratulations. Great luck.
Congratulations. Be safe. And our next item on the agenda is to honor the promotion of Officer Christopher Trainer to Sergeant. So we'll ask Sergeant Trainer to join you, Chief.
Kind of unique, we have a new officer, and now we also have a new promotion to celebrate, so it's great.
Yeah.
Chris Trainer grew up here in Webster. He attended St. John's High School, and graduated, went to Westfield State University, got a bachelor's in criminal justice. While he was here, he also enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, where he served as an officer of the rank of captain, as a assistant detachment commander with the 3rd Civil Affairs Group. Right? Yes. He can probably speak to more of that. He worked for us as a dispatcher, part-time dispatcher in 2011. Then he moved up to permanent intermittent sub-patrolman. And then he was hired full-time when he went to the State Police Municipal Academy in 2012. In his short time as a patrolman, he showed great promise with investigations, received several letters of commendation for various actions while he was performing those duties. And when we promoted then Patrolman Wheeler to Sergeant Wheeler, he was replaced by Officer Trainer at the DEA High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Task Force in Worcester, where he conducted several large-scale narcotics investigations. And he also remained very active back here doing narcotics investigations as well. So he had both things really going on. He handled them very well. He continues to do that. Currently resides in Dudley with his wife Kathy and their 4 children.
Sergeant Trainer, going to give us a speech, or are you?
Oh, I don't know. I have nothing prepared, but thank you.
I will just add that I'm feeling a little bit old because Sergeant Trainer was a classmate to my son since kindergarten, so I guess I'm feeling quite old today. But we'll go ahead and get you sworn in. Thank you.
Just raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear and affirm that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon you as a sergeant in the Webster Police Force, according to best abilities and understandings, agreeable to town bylaws and laws commonwealth to all be done? Congratulations.
You didn't even need the vest for protection.
Yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations. He wants to. He's thinking about it. He wants to.
He's not going to be a politician.
Thank you very much.
All right, hey,
Chief, thank you very much.
thank you.
And appreciate all the officers coming out in honor of this celebration as well. Thank you all for being here. And our retired Chief Bent back there. See, and Lynn, thank you.
There's a lot of beards in the room, I'm noticing, so.
Pretty well kept, too.
So we're doing No Shave November. A lot of departments do it for various reasons. We run it every year, and the officers donate money to give to the Michael Cindy Johnson Memorial Scholarship. So that's what we raise our money for.
That's a great cause. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Our next item on the business order of proclamation for Mr. James Ralph, and I think I see Mr. Ralph here in the audience. Mr. Ralph, if you'd like a seat here. We wanted to honor and congratulate you on earning your Eagle Scout. You're wearing it right there. Very nice. So we, if you don't mind, we'll read a proclamation we have for you. Proclamation honoring Eagle Scout recipient James Ralph. Whereas the town of Webster, a welcoming place for families in the heart of Massachusetts, takes great pride in its sense of community and citizen involvement. And whereas the vision of the Boy Scouts of America is to prepare every eligible youth in America to become responsible, participating citizens and leaders who are guided by the Scout oath and law. And whereas James Ralph is a resident of the town of Webster and is a senior at Bartlett High School. And whereas James is currently a junior assistant scoutmaster with BSA Troop 66 in Thompson. And whereas James has achieved the rank of Eagle Scout on October 12th, 2019. And whereas this is the highest rank attainable in the Boy Scouts of America organization. And only about 4% of Boy Scouts achieve this accomplishment. And whereas, for his Eagle project, James provided natural barriers for erosion control at the Buffinville Dam for the Army Corps of Engineers. And whereas, James completed the project on September 9th, 2018, and completed his board of review on April 25th, 2019. And, this is the last whereas, James has grown into a well-respected young man for children and adults to admire. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Town of Webster Board of Selectmen, do hereby recognize Webster resident Mr. James Ralph, member of Boy Scout Troop 66 in Thompson, Connecticut, for his hard work and dedication to provide natural barriers for erosion control at Buffinville Dam for the Army Corps of Engineers. We congratulate James for his achievement in attaining the admirable rank of Eagle Scout, the highest rank in the Boy Scouts of America organization. And we proclaim this day. So we congratulate you very much, James. Thank you for coming here, and thank you to your parents. Now you can give us a speech if you want.
Yeah,
So you want to do a picture, or?
sure, here.
Yeah, we'll sneak over here. Get the board up out of their seats.
My mother, my Eagle Scout too.
Doug, did you want to do the classification now, or do you want to do the?
Yeah, if we can move and do the OPEB right now, that'd be good. Mark, do you mind waiting a minute? All
We're just
right.
gonna.
Mark, we can,
Yep, we're just going to jump down a couple items. We have the OPEB report presentation. So OPEB, other post-employment benefits for people who don't know what OPEB means.
Thank you for having me out.
Have you introduced yourself?
I'm Parker Elmore here from Odyssey Advisors. We had worked with the town on your OPEB valuation, which is retiree medical, dental, life insurance. 99% of it is retiree medical, so that's really what this is all about. You know, we have a 50-page report that I'm more than happy to walk through line by line, but try to boil it down to something a little easier to work with.
Parker, I'll interrupt you. Parker is new this year working with the town of Webster, so he's mostly worked with Tim Bell. But from Tim's perspective that he shared with me, it's been a great working with you, so we appreciate the hard work you put into it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we work with over 300 municipal entities here in Massachusetts and about 500 nationwide, as well as we're in like 8 countries, I think, these days. So, just got back from Germany yesterday, so just had to come back and talk OPEB. So that said, so offices in Connecticut, one in Nevada as well. But with that all said, we'll skip over that fun stuff. So GASB 74 and 75 used to have something called GASB 45 you may have heard about in the past. And, you know, GASB 74 and 75, it's got to be almost twice as good with a number that high. So, no, it's just really a matter of a lot more disclosures is what it comes down to. So your financial statement, as you've seen on the pension side, what used to be like 1 page in the financial statement for pensions is now like 8. Well, OPEB, we're doing the same thing. So we have lots more disclosures to make the financial statement basically unreadable for the average human being. But I didn't write it, so that's where we are. And this was effective for your 2018 fiscal year. I spoke with a client the other day on this. We have lots of new terminology, new dates, but the concepts are really the same. You know, we're trying to figure out that Johnny or Mary work for you. They're accruing a benefit while they work. It's effectively deferred compensation. They're going to earn a medical benefit through their working lifetime, and they'll receive it in retirement, much like they do a pension plan. So with that said, the results, the good stuff. You guys had good experience over the 2-year period. You know, your guys' liability number on your balance sheet was about $38 million down to a little over $30 million That's the good news. You guys started funding the plan, setting some money aside. You know, again, we've seen a lot of that in the last 2 years since GASB 75 has taken effect. As these things get more visibility, people decide maybe I should start doing something about it, and that's a good thing. You know, we added this thing here about EQV, and other people want to see levy limits. I was trying to give you some measure about where you stand. You know, the EQV that the state puts out, you guys are at about 1.91%. That's a little higher than what we normally see. Not excessively higher, but again, it's a little higher than we see on the average.
So that's just so people are aware, that's akin to the assessed value.
Correct, yeah, the assessed value, correct.
And sorry, if we look at page 11, compared to the other communities you have listed,
Yep.
we look okay.
Yeah, as I said, I mean, you're slightly higher, but you're not off the rails by any means. I mean, it's, you know, you're right in the neighborhood of where I'd expect you to be. So, so nothing crazy. And you know, the quirk of the way the GASB does their math, which I don't agree with, that's a story for another day, is that as you start funding, the more you commit to fund, it means I get to use a higher discount rate, which therefore means the liability on your balance sheet is lower because we get to use a higher interest rate. So there's a certain circularity to it. The more you fund, the less you have to fund. And we can argue the relative merits of that, but that's GASB math, and that's what we got to deal with. So there is a certain, you have incentives to fund, let's put it that way. As far as, you know, the results, again, as I said, your experience was good over the 2-year period. The expense that flows to your financial statement went from about $1.2 million down to $869,000. Very good. You know, you started setting some money aside, $40,000. The biggest thing I tell every town is, because everyone always says, well, how much should I fund? Should I fund? Should I not fund? The biggest thing I can get across to you is what the rating agencies want to see as a plan. It's not so much what the plan is, but the mere existence of a plan. So whether that plan is $40,000 a year, $40,000 going up by $10,000 a year, maybe it's 1% of payroll, maybe it's a certain percentage of free cash, maybe it's all of the above. Whatever that plan is, the key element is a plan that you can actually follow. Because a plan that is not followed is not a plan. So if you can come up with a plan that creates a narrative you can share with the rating agencies, that's really what we're looking for here. And that will be favorably viewed by them. You know, as I mentioned a second ago, discount rate, which is the interest rate, for those trying to follow up on page 7 of where I'm at. The discount rate, the interest rate we use to take all those future payments back to today to figure out what the value is. Well, that went from 2% on your prior valuation up to 3.5. That adjustment by itself decreased the disclosed liabilities by about $6.6 million. Now, the key element I tell everybody is that's an assumption change, which is, you know, great and all. But the reality is, it didn't change your cash payments by $1. So if I take your discount rate to 8%, your liabilities would drop a ton. It doesn't change what the payments are. So that just changes when costs get recognized. The more important one is your premiums increased by less than expected. When I was saying you had good experience, that decreased your liabilities by $11.4 million. That's actual real money. So that's, when I said you had good experience, you had very good experience, and that's a good thing.
And sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but we just got our rates for calendar year 20, which are quite a bit lower than even last year. So
Yeah.
last year we had a small increase. This year we had a big decrease. So that'll,
Yep.
in a year from now, it'll be even better.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the big thing. And the big thing on that is, and we'll talk about in a second, is for OPEB purposes anyway, the rates that really matter are your Medicare supplement rates. So while the active plan may have gone down or up, that's interesting and all. Your Medicare supplement rates are really what drive these costs. And, you know, listen, you know, they've been fairly stable over the last few years, and that's a positive. You guys actually went down, which is even better. But hopefully that continues, because that'll really be drive your cost down over time. You know, I mentioned before about the assumptions. These are all the things, you know, we're projecting out liabilities and payments here for over 100 years. You know, you hire Johnny or Mary today at age 18. I have to project about for the time period they stay with you. Do they stay employed till they hit retirement age? Do they retire? When do they retire? Do they elect to take benefits? Do they cover a spouse? How long do they live? What will medical care costs be in those years? So we're going to, you know, projecting things out 100 plus years. So a lot of assumptions go into that. One of those is the discount rate I spoke about. The other one again is, what's the probability they stay employed every year? Well, now they're eligible to retire. What's the probability they leave at 55, 56, 57, and so on? What's the probability they take benefits? And what are healthcare costs going to be? The biggest mystery of them all. And so we're assuming about 4.5% a year rate increases, as you mentioned. This year, you're getting a decrease. Hopefully that continues. But again, over the last, 50-plus years, we have seen healthcare costs exceed inflation as a general rule. We always hope this time will be different, and maybe it is, but I have 50 years of experience to say otherwise. Yes, sir.
Parker, just the termination rates on page 8, just an idea of what do you actually use? You obviously adjusted for past experience.
Well, yeah, so to be clear, so the experience that we're using is really Massachusetts PAIR Act, the State Public Employee Retirement Administration Committee. PAIR Act is a study, an experience study, and that's really what we base it on, because the reality is the town of Webster's experience is not significant enough to go, hey, well, we had 2 people leave last year, we expected 3. I need like 10,000 people leaving a year to kind of, figure that out.
Make
Make
it
it
credible.
valid.
Okay, thank you.
Just as a heads up, the medical plan offerings that you guys have, with Harvard Pilgrim, and you have an EPO and a PPO, your rates are a little higher than the average, but it seems like that's adjusting more toward the norm, which is good. So that's a positive. And as I mentioned, the key element is really these Medicare supplement rates. Your MedX2 rate is $339, which is basically about right where we see it on average. So that rate has been pretty, growing, but not at a crazy clip. So I think hopefully that will continue.
So, yeah, and that's actually one that for fiscal year or calendar year 20 that went to like 290. So,
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, that's, a 10% reduction versus a 5% increase. That's going to get you another sizable decrease in your liability. So that's great news. Everyone always wants to know, well, that's all well and good that I'm funding. What's everybody else doing? So we kind of come to this slide. We're doing it now. We were doing it all the time. Now I decided to cut it back to doing it every 6 months, so you don't see these weird dates about what it looked like on February 13th or something. As of June 30th, you would see that basically 47% of people were under 1% funded. You were in that class. I would tell you 2 years ago, it was probably more like 80% of people were less than 1% funded. So people are moving up the scale. 87% are under 20% funded, which therefore means 13% are above 20% funded. There are some anomalies out there. Just people, for whatever reason, either their community has money, good for them. They've been very aggressive. Or the thing we're seeing now, and something you guys may want to consider, is at some point in time in 2028, 2032, thereabouts, where your community is, your pension plan in theory will be fully funded. The question is, what do you do at that point? The thing we see most communities doing at this point is dedicating to redeploy those savings over to OPEB. And when I mentioned earlier about the rating agencies want to see a plan, it's really a narrative that says I have one retirement liability with 2 components, pension and OPEB. The state requires that I fund pensions, so that comes first, but then I redeploy over to OPEB when that's done, and then I have both fully funded, let's say by 2043 or whatever the date happens to be. And again, that's a decision you guys have to make, but I will tell you that's something that we see very commonly at this point around the state.
And I would just ask Doug, I believe that is
That
the
is
plan.
what we plan on doing.
And we would expect our pension plan to be funded when?
I believe it's 2034, is that?
Around there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, so after 2034, the money's
Yep.
report toward
and-
OPEB.
Yeah, and that's like a million plus that will be available.
Thank you.
And then some comparison to your peers that everyone likes to see is kind of where you stack up. So, we do this a lot of different ways. We do it by geography, we do it by size, and we're trying to find discount rates that are comparable. And so, compared to some similarly sized communities from Ludlow to Southbridge, Bellingham, Millbury, and again, as you spoke about, your EQV of 1.9 compared to a lot of them, they're in the 2s and 3s and 4s. So your guys' number actually looks better. The statewide average are about 1.6, so I said you're a little higher than our statewide average, but compared to some of your peers, you're a little bit better. The per premium service cost. The service cost is the benefits being earned each year by the active employees. So to boil it down to one person, an average employee is accruing about $3,600 a year of service cost. It's really deferred comp. So if you pay Johnny or Mary $40,000, they're accruing $3,600 of medical benefits to be payable in retirement. And so again, the statewide average is about $4,300. You're a little bit better than that. Your peers here, you're also doing a little bit better than that. So again, you're, I guess, solidly managing, I guess would be a good way to phrase it. You're not neglecting things. Your plan is, again, doing well compared to your peers. And again, the benefit payments, the average per retiree payments, $39.80, just a hair under $4,000. Our statewide average is $5,000 and change. So again, you're slightly below that. And again, if you look at your peers here, you're below them as well. So I mean, from a management standpoint, I would say consistently you guys are at or below your peers. So I think you're doing a good job of managing that. And that service cost per active employee, we just try and break it out. Is that a question?
Actually, hey, one of our selectmen's on the phone. Don, if you'd be able to mute that until you have a question? Thank you.
Oh, okay, I thought you had a question. Okay, not bad. So we broke out the service cost by active employee by function, because a lot of people go, well, it's all well and good to tell me it's $3,600, but does it vary? And of course it does. Police and fire generally have shorter working careers because of the nature of the job they do in the state system and so on. So not surprising, we're amortizing their costs over a shorter period. The service cost is higher. School employees and town employees tend to work longer careers, therefore the number is lower. So it's a different way to look at it. So if you're trying to say, and we bring this up because we've had various communities who say, well, listen, the past is the past. What I should do is stop adding to my problem. So I'll have, every time I hire an employee, I'll have that entity pay their service cost each year. So we stop adding to it in terms of how we fund. Well, that's great, but if you say, okay, that's fine, then you have to tell the police department they have to come with $5,700 for a new hire. But the school department only has to come with $3,500 for a new hire. Now, some people are comfortable doing it that way. Some go, no, we're going to do $3,600 across the board. And other people say, yeah, we're not doing that. It's too much of a hassle. I don't want to be bothered. Again, my point is there's no one right way to do this thing. Every community is different. Everybody has different objectives, different capital structures. Maybe you have to build a new school next year, maybe a new fire truck. I don't know those kind of things. So when you say, how much money should I fund? My answer is always going to be, I don't know enough about your community in terms of what you have coming due and when. I can tell you that funding is favorably received by the rating agencies. More is better, but at the same time, if you can't afford to, keep the boiler up and running, having a well-funded OPEB plan is probably not the biggest priority you have out there. Projected cash flows, just kind of show you the expected, liability stream, if you will, over, say, the next 40 years. We have, year by year for like the first 5 years, then we go to 5-year increments. Again, you have a $30 million liability over the next 40 years. We expect that to grow to about $150 million. But on the right-hand side, we put in these present value terms. In other words, put them in today's dollars. And I do that because when you look at $150 million, your first thought is, it's hopeless, why even try? And so this came up 7 or 8 years ago, I want to say, with another town. I got that in a meeting, and I said, no, it's $1 in 2059 is not worth the same as $1 today. Hopefully not. And so we decided to put things in present value terms. So again, your liabilities will definitely grow, but they'll go from $30 million to $48 million over that same 40-year period. And the benefit payments will go from $1 million a year to $1.5 million. So again, it will definitely grow over that 40-year period. But my point is, it's growing about 1% a year. So it's a manageable problem. You can take small steps each year, or here, there, whenever you have time to do it. Or you can be like the federal government does and ignore the problem and hope it'll all go away and go, oh my God, I didn't see this coming, when the whole thing collapses. That is one approach, not one I recommend. I recommend monitoring things and making small incremental changes. You have a lot less, disruption that way. But again, it's ultimately your call, your town, your plan. So, but I want to at least give you some idea of where things are going so the train does not hit you at the future point.
It is a staggering number 40 years from now when you see a number that's $153 million, whereas now it's a little over 30 million. So that certainly, I think, got all of our attention. So it's nice to see the present value column on the right.
Yeah.
But it's still a staggering.
Yeah, it's still going up by a significant amount. So I don't mean to diminish that, but I mean, my point is, it really works out to be a 1% in real terms a year increase. So it's certainly not insignificant. But again, there are things you can do. And the biggest thing I tell folks is, in Massachusetts, unlike some of the other states we work in, you are much more limited in terms of what you're allowed to do. So like in Michigan, we basically put in private exchanges, we put in HRAs, we basically bought people out of the plan and wrote them checks to get them out of the plan. We did a lot of things there. In California, we changed the eligibility. In other states, we put in Contributions that vary by age and service. So we do different things in different states. In Massachusetts, the state largely says you can't go below 50-50. We'll define what the eligibility is, and you're pretty much done. So you're left with really changing the plans. Let's face it, that is the hardest thing to do. I guess the last thing I'll leave you with here is the excise tax, the Cadillac tax. Has a lot of names. Not all of them are fit for family television. But with that said, it was originally supposed to go into effect in 2018, then it was 2020, now it's currently 2022. If we were placing wagers on this in a FanDuel type situation, I would tell you I would bet on it going beyond 2022. I would, but it is the law, and we have to value it. I do not anticipate it being a major issue for you guys, but it is the law, so it has to be valued. But again, I would not have it cause a lot of sleepless nights, let's put it that way. Any questions, comments, concerns? I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff, and I know it's a complicated subject. We try and boil it down as best we can into something resembling, English for the average human being. Let's put it that way.
Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I will add that, as you know, we recently switched our health insurance to go to a joint purchase group. So when we did that, there is a trust fund that we are currently paying our claims out of, the runoff claims. Come about a year from now, we'll be able to take any leftover monies, and our plan is to put that into the OPEB trust.
Great idea. Because as of now, we're planning on $100,000 per year
Yeah.
in cash to put in.
Yeah, so $100,000 a year plus the leftover trust fund money, plus when we get to 2034, that we'll put into there as well. And then as we go forward, if we have a good year of free cash or something like that, we can always look at doing additional one-time payments.
Any further questions? I don't think we need a vote on this, other than we're accepting it for information, so, thank you.
Thank you
Thanks.
for having me out.
Thanks for coming from Germany.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Doug, do we have any folks from the property?
I believe that's in the back, yeah.
We can, Mark, would you mind waiting one more item?
Further ride than usual.
So on the next item on the agenda, the public hearing pursuant to MGL Chapter 139, Section 1, with respect to 124 and 124R High Street, Parcel 1T80 and 1T90. We will open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Okay, the public hearing is open. Folks, do you want to come on up? And Doug, do you want to do some introductions, and then I'm assuming we'll have
Yeah,
Mr.
so
Tatro as well?
Guessing you're the Haggis family, is that right? Yes, Don?
Yes,
Or
Don Dubois.
Okay. So they're the owners of 124 High Street, and we also have the building commissioner, Ted Tatro, here as well. In your packet, I provided some information, a few pictures of the property, also a copy of several demolition order letters that were given to the property owners, dating back as far as, I think the oldest one was 2013. So these have been given to the owners. Obviously, the building hasn't been torn down, so after talking with our legal counsel, they suggested that we follow the approach outlined in MGL Chapter 139, Section 1 through 3, which gives the Board of Selectmen the authority to declare the property a nuisance and order it to a number of different options, but one of them to be raised. So the town has, we just have received funds from another lien that closed that we got the funds from. So we do have enough money now to move forward with tearing this property down if the Board of Selectmen chooses to do so. That's the reason we haven't done this in the past, is that there wasn't funds available within the town to tear it down. But again, ultimately it's the responsibility of the property owners, and that's why we have the public hearing tonight.
Ms. Higgins, would you, obviously the town has been sending letters that I believe have gone unanswered for quite some time. Would you like to at least provide your side of this story?
My question would be, is when did they start sending these letters?
I think in our package, the earliest one I've seen is 2010. The bulk of these seem to go between 2013 all the way to 2018. They were sent registered mail. What is your street address?
49 Carlton Road.
Was it at once 158 Wheelock Street? That's one of the dates here.
I haven't lived there in several years.
Millbury?
And it wasn't street, it's avenue.
I'm sorry?
It's not Wheelock Street, it's Wheelock Avenue. Two different roads in the town of Millbury.
And this says Wheelock Street, so
So that's where, we never received these notices till this notices came to us.
By the sheriff.
The sheriff came to knocking on the door like 2 weeks ago. It's the first we've ever heard about tearing this building down.
So,
We just put a deck on the back of the building because they said it was in rough shape like 2 years ago. Pulled the permit, put a red deck on the back of the building.
yeah. So we have in the past sent it to the mortgage company as well, 13, and then we sent it to where the tax payments were sent. So, I mean, if we send it to where the registered taxes are supposed to be sent, so.
Correct, and I was just in, a couple of months ago with a change of address, because with everything going on, I came in and paid my taxes, and I had them change the address then, but I have not lived there in several years.
There's not even a house there. There's no residence at 158 Wheelock Avenue.
Yeah, no, the deputy that delivered the subpoena, not the subpoena, but delivered it, he told me that house had burned down and that he knew where you lived, so that's why he was able to deliver it there. But
So have the taxes been paid?
Taxes
are
are-
right up to date, always
And
have
have they
been.
been kept up to date? And did you ever notice on the tax bill itself that it had the wrong mailing address?
That's when this last time, that's when I came in and I had them change it.
So, but you've been paying the taxes?
Yeah, I just pay them online, so I don't,
Were they being
Never.
paid through the
Would-
mortgage company at one time?
yeah, they were,
They were being paid through the mortgage company for a while. That might have been.
yeah, they had been, but recently they weren't, so.
Yeah, recently she
Yeah.
took it over because
right,
they were
2
having
years ago.
troubles.
I took it over 2 years ago.
Yeah.
They kept messing stuff up, and she had to come down here, checks were being messed up, so she came down, straightened out, said she'll pay she took it away from the mortgage company, and she
Paid off the
directly went to the town hall. So she took that over 2 years ago. But she still had some problems with the town, and she came in here like a few months back and straightened out with, the collector and said, she'll come here and pay the taxes.
Have you ever had any discussions with anyone from the town with regards to the condition of the property? Because we
A
will have
while
the...
back, yeah, when I was asked to repair a deck, the rear deck, which I did that.
The second egress of the building, they said it wasn't safe, and we had to tear it off and replace it. And we did. At the tune of about $18,000. That was only 2 years ago.
I just wondering if any of the selectmen have any other questions?
Well, I was just wondering, you said 2 years you've been paying taxes quarterly.
Yes,
And it's gone to the same address, the Wheelock Street address. So you must know the amount so that you can then go and pay it online.
Oh, you can bet.
So how did you know when and how much your taxes were? If you didn't get something in the mail, I guess.
I had come to I came to the town here and asked, I did not receive my taxes. So they
For
gave
2
me a
years?
copy of the taxes and I paid it.
Okay, for 2 years?
For the last 2 years.
Yeah,
Before that, the mortgage company.
right.
And then we
Oh.
messed it up, so she came here and straightened out with the town tax.
Okay, so you hadn't been paying quarterly for the past...
Yes.
These taxes here, the taxes to this town on this property has always been paid on time with no problems.
Yeah, so they are paid on time. I mean, the town doesn't want to be the one to initiate the tearing this down. If, we can send you a new demolition order to your new address, but it's gonna have a demolition order to the property.
And why is that?
Because the property's not safe, it's a public nuisance.
Actually, do Do any of our other selectmen have questions? Because what we're gonna do is we'll have questions, provide information. We'll have Mr. Tatro come up, provide some information from his department. We'll also ask if there's anyone in the audience, because it is a public hearing, if anyone has any questions on it. We'll take whatever other information that we have, so but we're not trying to shut you down at all from talking. But I do want to give the other selectmen some chance to ask questions.
I have a question for Doug. When I'm looking at the correspondence that we have in our packet, there's some reference to a return receipt. Is that just the tracking number? Do we have record that it was actually received? What do we have for verification
Yeah,
of
so
delivery?
the certified mail, that is the green card number that got sent out.
Right.
And Ted, I don't have a copy of those, but I don't know if you have some.
But there was was it sent, return receipt requested, and we've never received? Okay, and maybe
Yeah, could we-
Ted, you can provide some information on that. Would you mind bringing the chair up?
Yeah, through the chair, if we have copies of the certified mail being signed as returned, I'd like to see the copies of what received so that we can confirm which letters were received and at what date.
Courtney, if you can give it, do you pronounce your name Hages? Your last name? Hages?
Her last name is Dubois.
I'm
Du
Dubois.
Bois, okay, because this is sent out
It's
to
in a trust
Don,
fund. It's in a trust
Don
fund
Hages.
for her children, Hages.
So we're just trying to find out if that's your signature on that.
No.
That's not her signature. I don't even know what that is.
It starts with a D, as far as I can
Yeah.
tell.
Not her signature.
Did we ever get any notification or return from someone else at that address saying that this did not belong to them?
Deck, the deck was, 2015,
So that was put on 2015-16, and that was pulled, and they're saying you sent us a demolition for a building. What are we putting a deck on it for? This isn't making sense to us
Yeah,
right now.
so that was specifically for the garage.
right.
Yeah.
This was for the garage, okay? Okay.
Well,
I don't know if
maybe we can, if we want to continue the public hearing, then.
You know, I think maybe, does Mr. Tatro have some additional information to?
Well, I know I've met, and I'm not sure I've met you.
I think I'm,
Yeah, I know I've met you on site to go over the conditions of the property, the rear of it being all plywood, open to the weather. At that point, I'm not sure what your nephew was living there.
yeah, we had a,
Yeah.
we're also living
The
in
relative living there with his son. We did go through, we did speak to you a few times about, okay, removing the debris on the lot, cleaning the lot up,
because she
I
paid.
paid,
She paid
the loan paid off, that's why they released it.
She took out another loan differently,
Okay.
so she paid off.
Okay.
She's still paying for it, but she's paid off a different way.
Okay. But after numerous times of speaking, still nothing's cleaned up over there. To this day, you can go over there, the yard is still the same way it was before. The back structure is still there, we have vagrants that are going in and out of the lower building. Ready at that contractors go down and look at it, and people coming out. So I mean, it's never been secured properly, it's never been, the roof is collapsing.
See, the gentleman that was there said that everything was secured and it was cleaned up.
It's not, and that's nothing.
And I did take a ride by today, this afternoon, and it is in horrible disarray. That,
Oh, yeah, it is.
You know, and the
that
front-
roof is collapsing on the garage building.
You know, the front building, we got a brand new roof put on that building since we got it. The third floor was stripped out because when we put the roof on it, they said there was so much weight in that building that it needed, there was 4 layers of roofing on the roof.
Oh, sure.
So they stripped that all off. The dumpster's left at 16 ton, and that was on just the top of the building, so, you know. And then they fixed the there's something about the conduit building at the driveway. The thing was wood, rotted into the ground. And then we had a crew come in from Rhode Island that jacked the building up, and it's all masonry, it's a cement wall now. And, you know, it's all straightened out, and that was like 15 grand. The roof was 22 grand. I think the deck was 17 grand. We've done some, this was a money pit. The rear building, when we bought that first, that was the first building she bought, I directly went down to the sewer department, and I said, there's no sewerage hooked up to this building. And the guy said, they're probably never gonna be, because it's down the hill. You have a septic tank, just have it pumped, that's all you gotta do. She buys the property. Within like 6 months, the guy stops paying rent, which, you know, she got the lesson taught to her, they don't pay rent sometimes. 8 months before we got this guy out of that building. Taking him to court, the sheriff's department, got him up. Got somebody else in, 4 months later, we get the notice. You can't have the septic pumped, you have to hook up the storage. New town rule. I go see the guy at the sewer department, he goes, it's not my doing, the town made the rule. How do I do this? Put a pump in, $12,000. I'm like, you're kidding me. We don't have this money is becoming crazy here. Now we got no tenant. We don't have storage, we got no tenant. So, you know, we were gonna do the storage, but then the roof started leaking in the big building with a roof on it. You know, that's more important. Everything just started hitting us like you wouldn't believe. You know, we tried to keep up with stuff, you know, and we just couldn't do it. The tenants all left us. 2 of our tenants moved out at the same time because of the school system. The kids weren't working out for them. It was like, you know, they couldn't park their cars. When we bought the building, it was fine to park their cars at the senior center. It was like that's the parking lot for this building was the senior center. 2 years into this, get a notice. No more parking at the senior center for anybody. It's like, what is going, you know? We were like getting beat up by them, you know.
Well, the senior center has actually been rented out to the
How is
Head
it?
Start, so that's the reason why
You
that's
know, it's like
actually.
the public town parking lot, and all of a sudden, bam, it's not no more.
I assure you, everyone's not trying to do their best against you.
You know, it was like when we bought it, we we're like, maybe we get some seniors just to live here without cars, and they can just walk across the street and hang out at the senior center all day. You know, help
I
some
think-
people out.
The concern, that we're seeing in here is we've seen issues since 2013, 14, 15. Sounds like you've done some work. There's no one living in the building now because of the condition of the building. I gotta tell you, everyone is worried about people getting in, and then you have a fire, and then someone says someone's in there, and God forbid, you get a tragedy like you just had. So that's the reason this is being looked at so heavily. We cannot afford as a town to have a building like that in that condition. So
You know,
whether or not it's,
I put a dumpster out back once, within 2 days, the dumpster got filled. It's like, I can't put a dumpster out back because you can't do it.
I just wanna know about
Cars
this.
Don
being
wanted to
dropped
say
off is crazy, because I get cars removed, 2 cars get dropped off. I get cars removed, 2 trucks got dropped off. I'm like, how do I stop this? I can't stop what's getting put on this property. I guess, I just had some cars removed over the weekend. The guy tells me, what's the big pile of rubble in the driveway? I goes, what pile of rubble? Cement, brick. I'm like, somebody dropped a dump truck load of stuff in the driveway.
there are 2 cars in the driveway now.
Yeah, the guy's trying to get him out of there, but somebody dumped a pile of, you must have saw it, right? Somebody backed a dump truck onto this property and just dumps a load of, I'm like, what's going on here?
I mean, short of having security cameras, that's the best way, obviously.
Well, I had security cameras, but I got a phone call, it had to be within the 2 years because I'm out in my new house, that from the National Grid saying there's a fire in Webster and the town is cutting the electricity from the pole to the house. I came running up here and no fire, you know? I thought the house, I called National Grid and they said, okay, I said, you must have made a mistake because there's no fire and everything was fine. And then I had another contractor come up to do some more work and he said there's no power. So the town insisted on cutting the power, so I can't do any work.
The town got the power due to the safety issues that were there.
Yeah.
Because you had extension cords running everywhere. As soon as you put a load like that on certain breakers, especially in an old facility, an old structure like that, you're asking for trouble.
But, you know,
So,
but before shutting the power, couldn't we have like done all this thing, just taken everything out of the panels so and just got us some power, left us some power there? It's like, you know,
we did send out orders, we did try and contact people, and we've been like no avail, so, you know, they kind of left us no option. And then when, like I said, when we did the welfare check and we found the conditions that were inside, you couldn't do it. Because somebody was gonna get it.
Thank you, Mr. Joel. Did you have a question?
Not at the moment.
you know, we've had some serious personal hardships ourselves. We had a house burned to the ground. We lost everything we owned 3 years ago.
Sorry to hear that.
And that, you know, it's been a battle. It's been a battle. We had to take in one of our grandchildren. You know, either that or foster care. We took him. That was about 4 years ago. And, you know, we're not trying to neglect this property, but for us to lose this property is gonna kill us. That's what it's gonna do. I mean, whatever we can do, you know, we gotta get dumpsters over there and, you know, empty the building if that makes it safer. I gotta put a fence around the back property if that helps me out now. Whatever it takes, you know.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is, I'm gonna ask if anyone in the audience has any concerns or questions on this property. I don't see any, so, do we have any other facts that we wanna at least get out? Because we're still in the
Yeah.
public hearing.
Right, so-
We can't deliberate
Yeah.
while we're in a public hearing.
I don't have any additional facts that would, before we deliberate.
Okay. Does the rest of the board have any other questions?
I have a question going back to, you said that there was dialogue with someone on the property, correct?
Yeah.
And that dialogue was with someone who's related to you, or a tenant or someone?
I spoke with her at the property. I did speak with this gentleman on the
So,
phone.
Dawn
So
and
was that
Ken.
what she was doing, having the deck built or something?
But
Yes.
prior to that,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, because it was a unit property with deck open, so we were in communication at that point. Then communication was kind of lost. And then I had communication with the tenant that was actually there, who we had to do the check on his child. And that's when everything was
So the fact that the deck was put on, you were aware of the deck, but you would not, any of the Webster services haven't been inside the house, so you weren't aware of the condition of the house. I'm just trying to understand why so much money was invested in the deck.
No, no.
Yeah. And I will add, if someone receives a demolition order and wants,
No, that was put on after that gentleman had to leave.
Yes, the deck was,
We had to use a generator for power.
The police actually went up that deck, climbed the window to get the voltage, get it back. That was on.
the brand new deck was on.
I wouldn't let anybody know the old deck. The old deck didn't go up to the top.
And just, you understand, the gentleman that was living there was kind of like a relative type person, but when two tenants left, the last two tenants left because of they had issues with their children. One had special needs or something, he was just having way too many problems with the Webster school system, which was understandable, no problem, they left. We didn't want the building empty, so we kind of like said, please, you know, we'll give you the best deal in the world, go live in this building for us, you know, like a security guard. And then he was here for like maybe close to a year, and all of a sudden, he got a call from DCF or whatever agency that he had a child that the it's either going to foster care because his wife was messing up his ex-wife. And he took the 2 children into the property, so, and then he didn't even tell us about it right away either. We found out through somebody else in the family that he has his kids. We're like, what are you talking about? He said, his kids, when did he get his kids? Where, he's living in our building, so.
Well, I think you hear, at least through the hearing part of it, the number one issue, I think, is it a danger to our community?
Right.
With it being a danger, is it a danger to someone getting in? And God forbid, is it a danger then of having a fire and having a tragedy there? Whether it be to someone squatting in the house or a first responder. So we take this extremely seriously. So any other questions for the? Yeah,
I know, my brother's a firefighter, so.
Yeah, we'll get into.
I'm on board with that.
I just want to see if anyone else has any questions on the public hearing side. Otherwise, I'd take a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second. Any further questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? It's a unanimous vote to close the public hearing. Now we'll talk about it, now that the public hearing is closed. As far as solutions go, I'm sure that Mr. Tatro, Mr. Willardson would be willing to, work with you. It's not the town's intent to grab your property. The town's concerned about safety. So I would ask Doug and Ted your thoughts as far as where do we go from here.
My thoughts, communications, number one. We have to be in constant contact. If there is something that's going to be done, I need a timeline. I need a timeline and a scheduled step that we're going to take to improve the project. If I can't get that, back to square one.
And Ted, typically if we give a demolition order and people disagree with it, we require an engineer's review.
Yeah, we get chapter 34 if you want. And the engineer will tell you exactly what needs to be done and which order. And it's pretty straightforward. You get that. If you want, call me. I'll give you 4 different engineers to do it. They're reasonably priced. It's not something that's going to break the bank. And
I apologize, I'm the one that dropped the ball the last couple of years because I've been, dealing with with the change of address and everything, and that's why we, I guess, lost contact.
And I do understand people lose contact, and there are things in life that come up, I do understand. But, again, the safety issue that we have at hand is what my main concern is.
I get that.
Public safety is problem.
So unfortunately, there has been this communication issue. I'm not sure at this point what the desire of the board is. If the board wants to take a vote to go ahead with the demolition order with also the proviso that Doug and Ted have the authority to meet with the owners to come up with, a timeline to get things fixed so that it wouldn't have to be demolished. I'm going to leave this to any further discussion from the board.
To the chair, my concern right now with the demolition order is because we do have the copies of our letters, but I don't have hard proof that they've been signed or delivered other than the one letter that was recent, that I believe that was the 2000, the date on that was 2015.
Yeah.
So given that we don't have the letters, proof from 2013 available to us showing that they were signed for, they were received, it's very hard for me to say, let's go with the demolition right now. What I prefer to see is give you guys 30 days to come up with an action plan and come back before the board on our meeting on December 18th and work with Ted to get the recommendations of what he needs to see for it to be secured and have an action plan to present to the board. So I make that in the form of a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
In the form of discussion, folks, have you been inside the building?
I haven't been, yes.
I haven't been in there in years.
So I think it starts with, if it's even safe to go in the building at this point,
You are the owners, if you want to sign a waiver for the town saying, that you guys are responsible, something that, no problem do it. But you can't.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the motion at hand?
Well, I'd just like to, through the chair, I'd just like to add that you've already identified some issues with the dumpsters, and certainly if you do any renos, the dumpsters have to come in place, and they get filled up from your others. And also the dump truck, it sounds like you have to secure the outside of the property better than before you can begin inside, or otherwise it's gonna be a vicious cycle.
And/or have security cameras that you can then review to see who's doing the illegal dumping.
Well, no, I don't now because there's no electricity.
Right. Assuming
Right.
the electricity can somehow be.
I honestly believe that if you guys clean up the outside, get rid of the big vehicles and stuff, you're cutting down a lot of people in the area, keep more of an eye on it.
Yeah, we have a gentleman that does watch it up the road, that gentleman that was living in it, became really good friends with.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how he missed the dump truck.
Unfortunately, there's so much chaos in the yard
Yeah.
that, if I'm in a dump truck and I'm driving down, I need to get rid of this, who's gonna see it if I go with it? Nobody. So,
I thought it was
Right.
It's a pretty visible spot, I always thought, but, did you guys, somebody said you cut all the trees down too or something there?
they did cut off the one.
Yeah, actually, you could go downhill and just dump it, and no one would be the wiser. Doug, you had a,
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's maybe part of the motion or as part of our plan in the next 30 days. I think an engineer's review is necessary for the building because, I mean, just from the outside, it's all rotted in the back and I'm sure the front is the same thing. It's just been covered with siding.
Being three families commercial, so you have to have engineers.
so I would, if maybe Mr. Jolda could amend his
To
motion to include an engineer's review.
And make sure we get the correct mailing address for you on file.
And that you all have phone numbers of each other.
Yeah, maybe before you guys all leave.
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor of the motion at hand, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? It's a unanimous vote. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Next item on the agenda is the tax classification hearing with the town assessor, Mr.
Mark, do you mind if we
Becker.
push you off? No.
Thank you for your patience, Mr. Becker. Thanks, Mark. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to open the tax classification hearing.
Second.
Second. We have a motion and a second to open the hearing on tax classification. Any questions? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It's a unanimous vote. Thank you, Mr. Dolan.
Good evening, Board.
Evening, Mark.
This is my 16th tax classification hearing. Pretty interesting, and it's also the first time I'm coming before a presentation that we're having a follow-up to a one-rate tax town. Legal notice, Board of Selectmen in coordination with the assessor will hold a public hearing Monday, November 18th at 6 p.m. in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, second floor. It's in conformity with the provisions of Mass General Law for the purpose of holding a tax classification hearing to establish the relative tax burden to be borne by each class for fiscal '20. All interested parties are invited to attend and participate. Written and oral comments will be accepted from the public prior to and during the meeting. I'm going to just do a quick abbreviation of my second page. Annual hearing, the Selectmen, Town Council must hold a hearing. The hearing is held after the assessors have determined final values, and we have reported to the DOR, and the DOR has certified our values. We're notifying to have a public hearing by our charter and bylaws. In addition, taxpayers must be notified by the hearing by a comprehensive public information release. We advertise twice in the Webster Times and once in the Telegram and Gazette. The Selectmen shall conduct the classification hearing and vote on available tax rate options. The vote may be taken at this hearing or at a later meeting. Basically, the tax rate options have to do with doing a shift as we had in the past, when some of the tax would be extra borne by the businesses or the commercial, thus lowering the residential rate. Tax policies, municipalities have several options to distribute the tax levy among the taxpayers.
That's basically taking it from one class and putting the burden on the other. You can either do the single tax rate where all properties are taxed at the same mill rate, or do some kind of a split to reduce the share. Page 3 is the levy limit. Previous year, we have a levy. On top of that, we add 2.5%, which was Prop 2.5's increase, which this year was $558,890. We had a very nice new growth year to the tune of $318,698, much greater than I had anticipated coming forward. Some of the things that key into new growth would be an exempt property coming off of the exempt rolls, such as East Main Street, and coming under the tax rolls for the first time, zoning changes, new property splits, all those new homes being built. It would have been a banner year this year. We had like 14 new homes that came under construction, and a handful of knockdown and rebuilds, of course, around our lake. On top of that, down below, we have our debt exclusions. Debt exclusions this year is $2.59 million, and that's an increase of about $250 million from the previous years. Page 4 is just the basic tax rate growth, where we're proofing down all of our different types of property using last year's tax rate, and that bottom number in the right-hand corner of 318,698 was our new growth. Our next page is basically just the value adjustment from last year to this year. We actually, the next page is the DE1, which is the debt exclusion. So basically, we had a number from the previous years. We went from some temporary payments into all full-time permanent fundings on the bottom with all the properties. And if I'm not mistaken, all of our properties are into the permanent funding now going forward for the library, which was our last project coming up, the schools, police stations. The next page is the recap, and sorry about how the computer prints stuff out, but this year, tentatively, our tax rate is looking at $15.06. And then my favorite page, page number 7. This is basically a 20-year history across the board of a lot of different information. Going back to last year was the first year that we did go with a single rate, and we had 1533. And you can see the previous years going back almost 40 years where we had some kind of a split venture. In the lower box, our fiscal year 20. I want to just take just a quick note as we slide over it onto the right-hand columns. The last two right columns are levy. And you notice a progression of how much each year goes up. And each year goes up that 2.5% and the new growth, and then that debt exclusion. 6 years ago, we went from $600,000 worth of debt exclusion to basically $2.2 million. During that time frame between fiscal 14 and 15, our impact just on the debt exclusion was 10.5%, having to do with our tax rate across the board. Going backwards in time, the highest our community had been assessed as a community would have been in fiscal 08, when we were at $1,712 million. Over that 11 to 12 year period, we went down for the first 5 or 6 years, basing out in fiscal 14, basically $360 million lower than we were 5 years earlier. Over the last handful of years, we've had a good, strong housing market. Prices are back up. We have the foreclosures pretty much behind us, with still more than a handful of vacant homes still out there waiting to be foreclosed on. But I'm happy to say that our valuation as a community over that 12-year period has rebounded back to where we were in fiscal 08, 09. And this year from last year, we went up $102 million, or basically 6.5%. So when we're talking about the single rate and the split rate, it basically boils down to, in the past, as we can look at our historical numbers, a small adjustment creates a wide gap in between the two rates. This being the first year that we're following up after a 1-year rate, I just want to let everybody know that the assessors itself think it's a great thing for the businesses, for the people, If you'll notice, the Chamber of Commerce is not here this year, as they have been in the last 5 or 6 years. We got a lot of happy news from them last year when they were trying to get the other communities to start moving in the right direction. From a standpoint of tax classification, basically I'm requesting a vote on a 1 rate. And so basically the shift is called just the 1, you know, where it was 1 rate for all. I chose today to not put the extra work into what all those different things mean, okay? Basically, if you save 10 cents on one side, it's beating the other side up for 70 cents to 80 cents. And as you look in the back, where we have that differential in the middle, 16 cents savings was basically $1.01 upside on the others as it went back. And the wider that gap, the greater diversity between what I call parity or fair value, coming across the board. That's basically short and sweet for tonight.
So Mark, it would be your recommendation with the 1533 single rate for fiscal 2019, so the 1506 is the recommended single rate.
Subject to us pushing the button and getting our approvals from the DOR. Last week, we received certification on new growth in our values. As of about 3 hours ago, Mr. Bell and I pretty much looked at everything, and we hope to be pushing the button tomorrow or Wednesday, the latest, to get it in front of the DOR to get things moving along. So I would suggest to vote for a single tax rate of 1, and my tentative is 1506, it could be 1505. And my excess levy capacity, which was something we always talked about in the past. We always tried to narrow that funding gap where we're utilizing everything we can in the levy. Right now, it's looking at just about $11,000 that I've been playing all afternoon trying to get it a little lower, but whenever you try to get too low, you go over the budget limit, or levy limit, and it says no.
Yeah, so just to clarify, so the board's not voting the actual rate, they're just voting the
Single.
the shift, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to vote for a single rate for the coming year, 2020.
Thank you.
Do we have a second? Fiscal year 2020.
Yeah.
Any discussion on this? I would say that it's nice to see, it took us 12 years to get back up to 2008. It's nice to see that we're over that number with regards to valuation, although it's not over by much.
It's amazing when people ask me, what's the impact? I was gonna do a little bit more elaborate to show people the average increase in town, or basically the increase in town was 6.4%. The single families were a little higher, the residential was an average, the 3 families went up the most this year. Last year it was the 2 families. In past years, it was certain colonials in parts of town. So there's different spikes in all of that sale data over the last handful of years. I will say, this valuation is based upon January 1st of 19, using 18 sales and a trailing 17-year sales. And if you watch the Webster Times or see how the sales prices are going, 19 was a banner year to the upside. So I would expect the trend of value increase and a tax rate going down again next year, subject to the economy staying strong.
Which is great with regards to the tax rate number itself. Those people who live in those areas that are going up more, the double, the 2-family, the 3-family, the
They'll be
lake,
paying a little higher.
they're gonna be paying, they're gonna be having a higher assessed value
Yes.
at a lower rate. They'll probably be paying more money.
Yes.
Any further questions on the vote we have in front of us for a single rate? Don, you all set? No questions? Okay. Great, thank you. All those in favor of the single rate, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is a unanimous vote. Thank you, Mark.
I do have the classification form for you to sign later on.
Yeah, I'll leave it here. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda
Okay.
is our Friends of the Library update. Mr. Claver.
Thank you. Good continued.
Board of Selectmen, Administrator Williamson, good evening. I'm Tom Claybar, President of the Friends of the Gladys C. Kelly Public Library. And I'm here tonight to announce a $50,000 donation from the Friends to the town of Webster. I had previously met with the board probably a year and a half ago to announce that we're going to have a fundraising campaign, and spoke about two fundraising goals, which they were number one, to establish an endowment for the library to continue well into the future their ability to create new programs, buy new equipment, etc. And our second goal was to help the town pay for the construction cost of the library. And the success of our fundraiser should enable us to meet both of our goals. Our intention is to make annual donations to the town that in sum will equal the non-eligible library construction cost. And if you're not familiar with the non-eligible library construction cost, it is the non-eligible costs that are not eligible for reimbursement by the MBLC grant. And so we set that as a goal for ourselves, and as of March 4th, 2019, that total is $928,989. We'd like to keep the amount we donate to the town in the future as consistent as possible year to year, and the reason for that is to help the town do a better job budgeting. What we could do is have $20,000 one year, $70,000 another year. We're going to try to keep it consistent year to year. However, the amount that we're able to give each year will depend on two factors. First of all, the financial stability and health of our investments. If, for example, if the stock market plunges, that impacts our ability to pay. We'll have to determine how much we can pay or donate to the town depending on that. And also, it depends on the donation pledges that we have being paid. We have some donation pledges that were made that will take 10 years to pay the donation pledge. And so if we have any pledges that aren't paid, then that impacts our ability to pay the total of $928,000. But that is our intention going over the next 15 to 20 years. As stated in our letter to you, a condition of the Friends making the donations to the town is that the donations be used only to pay for the non-eligible costs of the library construction. And we kept that wording in there because I'm pretty sure those costs are paid for now, but just in case they're not, we kept that in there because the condition would also allow the donation to be used to pay down the debt principal of the library construction bond. So even though we're talking about the non-eligible costs, that applies to the bond payments also. And the donation cannot be used for any other purpose. The Friends are asking that the board vote as a body to accept that condition. And as mentioned, our donation this year will be $50,000, which we paid to the town once you've agreed to our condition. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Questions of Mr. Clifford?
Well, through the chair, I'd just like to comment, I think you've had a very successful fundraising year this first year, and I think you generated a lot of enthusiasm for the library that some may have questioned in the past and all that, but I think the more people that see it, and how beautiful it is and how nice it is for the town.
The town should be proud of the library, and you know, it was the town that allowed that library to be built.
Yeah, very good.
And I think as beautiful as the library is inside and out, it's just running gangbusters in town. It's very, very busy. It's I think everyone's hope and dreams are coming true. And I have to say thank you to the Friends, because I know there's a lot of folks behind that organization that's helping to make the library what it is.
Yeah, we're glad that we can help the library be as successful as it is.
Yeah,
and
actually,
we're having fun. We're really proud of the Friends and the efforts that the Friends have put into helping the library. And we're glad because the fundraiser was so successful. We're glad that we're going to be able to help the library well into the future.
Yeah, every time I try to book it, it's already busy, so I can't do any town meetings over there, so.
I know, I thought that I'd have an easier time setting schedules for Friends meetings, but I'm having the
Yeah,
same
same
as everybody
problem,
else.
yeah.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it is.
I think that request makes perfect sense. We certainly thank you for and the Friends for the donation. And I think, without any further ado, I'm sure that we can get a motion to agree with the terms you've set forward.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we accept the donation of $50,000 from the Friends of the Gladys C. Kelly Public Library, with the stipulation that the funds be used to pay down the non-eligible costs as listed in the Webster Public Library total project budget dated March 4th, 2019.
Second.
Any further questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It's a unanimous vote. Tom,
Great.
thank you very much, and
Well,
please
thank you
thank
very
the
much.
Friends as well.
Thank you.
Just through the chair, will this have to go on the warrant for the next meeting to
Will-
be accepted by the town as well?
It'll just be built in as part of the annual budget.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, our next item on the agenda, Just Wing It, downtown liquor license request. Come on up, sorry, we're running about 10 minutes late. If you could just introduce yourself.
Okay, sure. My name is Steve. I'm the owner of Just Wing It.
Steve.
I just basically heard that there was an opportunity to get a liquor license in that area. So I guess at this point, I'm just inquiring about it. I'm not sure if this is the official meeting or not, but.
Yeah, and I think this evening we were asking you to come in and kind of,
Right.
tell us your
Present what we want.
plans
Yep.
for it. I think
More or less, I'm looking for a beer and wine. I have no intentions of real,
Oh, okay.
we're a small establishment.
And I think that was one of the
That's-
questions that
Yeah,
was raised here.
a big request for us was do you have beer, as the patrons came in? And we thought this would be a good opportunity to apply for something. If we need be a restriction to not have full liquor,
Yeah,
we're
so,
totally happy with that.
yeah, so the only problem is, there are no beer and wine licenses currently available. We only have the all alcohol license available in the downtown area. There will be, well, there's a potential for a beer and wine to open up when someone who's currently in the process to request an all alcohol license gets theirs. That will open up their beer and wine license, but currently there isn't one available.
What would the timing be on that, Doug, on that scenario? What is their timing?
It's up to the current, to the applicant, which I wouldn't put any faith in that happening quickly.
So I think you're right in saying that we have one more.
So no, we had the
Two.
5 in the downtown area. So Kretschmann has one, Lobster Nook has one. We approved one for the Sydney Rail Club, but they have now released that one, and because they're moving to another site that has one. So we technically have 3 available. So Just Wing It is interested, and we've also had discussions with Be Kind. They're also a restaurant. They are interested in expanding and potentially getting an all alcohol
So
license.
as of now, we have 3 for our special
We have 3 available.
downtown
Yep.
district. And we don't have the ability to convert one of those to a beer and wine.
Not without going back to the state.
The other option, I think, was what had happened with the Rose Room recently. Is that another option, or?
That is an option to request special legislation for just a beer and wine for that specific location.
Timing-wise, that takes a while, doesn't it?
Yeah, because it has to go to town meeting, has approved there, then it has to be approved by the state legislature, and then they have to apply for it.
And you're looking at opening
Yeah, a
sooner
little
than
bit sooner
later?
than later, yeah. Would there be a problem with getting a full liquor license if there was not a?
Yeah, I think that's certainly up to the board in total. I think it's, when you're issuing a full liquor license, one of the big questions was the amount of people in your establishment.
Right.
So you
Correct.
typically wouldn't want to issue a full liquor license
Right.
for an establishment that might only see 20 people.
Exactly.
And
Makes
it does tie up one of those licenses at that point, and makes one less available.
Right.
And even though those licenses do travel with, but they cannot travel beyond
Beyond.
the main street.
scope of
So,
it.
some would be concerned that that license may travel with and then go beyond
Right.
And with the owner of it, but in this case, it can, but would have to stay within the
Within the
main street.
boundaries
So
of
there's a little, you know, my opinion would be there's a little less risk with that happening, given that we have 3 available licenses right now. Could you tell us a little bit more about Just Wing It?
Sure.
And what your plans are? Because it had been open?
Yeah, we were open for a while. Business slowed up a little bit after the football season and the college Nichols, so we took a little time off in the summer. And the original plan was to reopen in September with football coming back. Just fell behind with some other projects that we're doing. And so now we're ready to go. And we were kind of excited with the opportunity to get some sort of alcohol license that would help the business out itself, because we did have a lot of requests for it. So that was kind of the nature of our.
And from a
being here
capacity
tonight.
standpoint, are you pretty much limited to?
I
20
mean, we
people?
could do full liquor, but I don't think it's something we would.
No, I'm sorry, as far
want.
as the capacity of the people.
20 seats.
20 seats, is that
Yeah.
pretty much max capacity?
Yeah, I would think so. Yep. Yeah, we're only about 1,100
I would
square.
agree, yeah.
We're only about 1,100 square feet. We're,
We'll have the fire department come in.
yeah, right. No.
Um,
Is it something that we could?
I mean, maybe we could do
creative.
something creative and
Right.
work with the all alcohol now and start the process
That's
for a
fair.
beer and wine.
Yeah.
And then once that's received, you could revoke it perhaps.
And have you switch out to?
Yeah, I'd be totally comfortable with that, if we could do something like that. Well, there's 3 available and nobody else really looking for it at the moment.
Yeah, the only concern would be if you get used to the all alcohol, then you might not wanna switch
Yeah.
back, but I think
Yeah.
if we have a,
Right.
an agreement.
An
that
agreement,
makes
and
sense.
certainly something we would be happy to sign, saying that we're not really interested in serving anything beyond beer and wine.
And if you get the all alcohol license, would you be looking to
Not really, no.
stock a bar and?
No,
and
no.
all
We're
the,
just really looking for the beer and wine is what we're.
Yeah, I think
really-
sales-wise, it would be tough to stock a bar.
Right, there's really
Right.
not a
Capacity.
lot of room
Right.
there to,
Right.
yeah, to make drinks and whatnot anyway. We're
Yep.
limited on space.
Yeah, I personally hate to, you know, see you go without it, because
Right.
Right.
we very rarely have companies come in and ask
Right.
us for an alcohol license on Main Street, which is something we're trying to promote, so
Okay.
you know, I kinda like the idea that you're saying that you really wouldn't use it, but
Yeah,
you'd have
I'd be
a-
flexible in signing something too, agreeing that
beer and
you know,
wine.
and I would trade it in if one came available and we could give it back, work with somebody else.
well, I'd make a motion to approve issuing the all alcohol license with the stipulation that understanding of agreement would be issued, that, and an application for a beer and wine license would be forthcoming.
Great.
And that,
Thank
once it is available, then we'll be able to switch it over, is that, if we could add to that
Yeah.
motion?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll second that for discussion purposes.
Okay.
I don't know if under state law, if we're able to issue it with that kind of a restriction, that it be traded in. I'm not sure if that's something that the ABCC would allow under their regulations.
They just approve the license, that would just be a town.
Okay, the town issue,
Yeah,
okay.
they approve the license.
Yeah, I think so long as it wouldn't, under discussion, as long as it wouldn't be prohibited by the state.
Yeah, and we can all just double check and specifically ask the question.
And I guess we can add that then to the motion, you know, so long as it's not prohibited by the state. Tim, I'm sorry, back there, did you have a question?
Well, I was just gonna, my question would be, if someone else were to come forward with an application for that license, they would have to be denied, like, kind of along the same things, was if it's prohibited, but are you precluding someone else from applying because you, in essence, already given that license away?
Yeah, I think
That was kind of my question, which is kind of the same thing as being prohibited.
yeah, I think for the audiences, in case they didn't hear that, if we do in fact grant this, we're prohibiting, because we only have 5 of them. 2 of them have been issued. 3 have been issued. 1 of those has to come back because it is, they're not gonna have their establishment in this zone. So we actually have 3. 1 of them is kind of being worked on now, outside of Just Wing It. So we technically would have 1 more available to be discussed. So we wouldn't be prohibiting one, there would actually be one more available.
And what's the status with the lobster now?
They
Yeah, so
have-
actually they came in today and they are close to reopening, so they.
Oh, okay.
And they are actually on our agenda
Yep.
to receive a license for fiscal 20, I'm sorry, calendar 2020.
Yep.
Any further questions? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? None? It is a unanimous vote. So,
Okay,
thank you. You will have to work with
Thank you.
Courtney if you would.
Appreciate it. Thank you much.
Appreciate the
Yeah, thanks.
business being on Main Street. Thank
Yeah.
you. Our next item on the agenda is a vote to exempt Doug Willardson and Tim Bell under Section 19B1 of Chapter 268A as a member of the MSHG Executive Board. We did receive information in here. Doug, you just want to give a quick...
Yep, so we created the Joint Purchase Group for Health Insurance, which is titled the Mass Strategic Health Group, MSHG. So I'm an executive board member, and Tim is my alternate. Because we both take the town health insurance, it could be seen as a conflict of interest because we set the rates for ourselves. So we just need to declare that that is a potential conflict of interest, have our appointing authority approve it, and then file it with the town clerk.
And just for the record, Tim will about to be your replacement, because we've got him in.
Yeah, right. We haven't actually voted that.
Any questions with regards to this item? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to exempt Doug Willardson and Tim Bell under Section 19B1 of Chapter 268A as a member of the MSHG Executive Board.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's a unanimous vote. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Tim, are you sticking around to approve you as an alternate, or you're just?
I probably wasn't, but if you want me to.
No, I don't, I was gonna ask if we go out of order if you were sticking around for that.
Yeah, I probably was gonna go at this point. Well, actually, after you vote on the warrant, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
Unless you want
Okay,
me to stick
well, let's, we're about to do the town meeting warrant.
Yeah, so that's good.
So, we need a vote to open the special town meeting warrant for Monday, January 13th, 2020, at 7 PM at Bartlett High School.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's a unanimous vote. All right, that will allow Tim to get going. Next item on the agenda is vote the order of taking and just compensation for easements on Lake Parkway and Claybert Ave. We've gotten a little bit of information in our packets here, and
Yeah.
I've asked Doug if he can just give a broad overview.
And while I do that, you can take one of these and hand it down. So this is a transportation improvement plan project, which means that it is federally funded, and it goes through a state process called the TIP that is organized through the local regional planning group, CMRPC. So it's been about 5 years that this has been in the planning stages. Over the past 5 years, we have designed it. In October of 2017, town meeting approved the town to move forward with accepting the easements on this road. This past summer, in July, we received approval from the CMRPC that this has been approved and is on the tip for construction in the 2020 construction season. So at that time, we contracted with an appraiser. So they took our engineered design and they went out and appraised the easements that will be needed for the project. In the packet that was delivered, the vast majority of them are just temporary easements for construction, so, but there are a few utility and permanent drainage easements as well. The total value of all the easements is $49,490. So we have a 70-page appraisal for each of those, and yeah, so our next step in the process is to have the Board of Selectmen approve the record of taking. The order of taking, we will, if the board approves that tonight, we'll meet with our town council, and this week they'll get those recorded, and we'll make the payments to the abutters of Lake Parkway and Claybird Ave. We also have gone through the whole list, and we've checked to see who owes us money, so we will coordinate their payments with our payments, so it'll also benefit us that way as well.
Through the chair, will that include water and sewer payments?
Yep. Anything that they owe the town.
Anything outstanding? Okay.
Any specific questions? In the packet I handed you, this is the plan of land showing permanent temporary easements in the town of Webster. This is very small, it's a little difficult to see. I could blow it up on the screen if we needed to. If there's any specific questions about it.
Basically, what in the package you just handed us, it shows us each individual property with the engineer's information on it, in which case they would have used for the calculation of the temporary and/or permanent easement.
Yeah.
And I know we have not had one of these in, at least since my
Yeah,
tenure here.
Yeah, because it's using federal funds, it's very much defined by the federal guidelines for taking property, which we spent more money appraising the properties than it cost for all the value of the appraisals.
Well, and I think, Doug, that was one of the questions I had, was we were paying people money for the temporary easement, which threw me a little bit, but again, that's in accordance with the federal requirements.
Yeah, and you'll see those ones are relatively minor. It's like $200 to be able to use their property for, actually, it's up for 4.5 years. The construction season will likely just be one summer, but they recommend 4.5 years just in case something drastically goes wrong.
And for those that have a permanent easement, there were about 10 of them. Have we had any questions of concerns? Because we've sent notices out.
Yep, so they have all been received letters 30 days ago, actually more than 30 days ago, about the value of their property, the easements, and they've been coordinating with the town engineer. So we haven't had any issues. There are actually a couple that we're waiting to hear back on to sign an actual donation slip. We were hoping for more of those, but we've had a couple that show interest. And if that is the case, we'll not compensate them, and we'll
I certainly thank those folks that are doing that. Are there other questions on the information we have? If not, we do have a suggested motion if someone would like to put it forth.
Yeah, I move to approve the order of taking for easements along portions of Lake Parkway and Claybird Avenue as described in the order of taking and the plan of land showing permanent and temporary easements in the town of Webster, Mass, Worcester County, dated November 6, 2019, and compensate abutters for the easements as specified in the spreadsheet per the appraisals prepared by Foster Appraisals Incorporated.
Second.
Any further discussion on this item? And I know, Don, you've received this in the package as well, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It is a unanimous vote. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is review and vote on the renewal of local licensing authority issued licenses for calendar year 2020. We do have each of the various categories of licenses outlined in the almost 3 full pages on our agendas. Is there anyone, I know I have a couple myself I need to recuse, and I'll state which ones. Under the all alcohol restaurant, I will have to recuse on the Fresh Chef doing business as Point Breeze Restaurant and Wintiki Inc., both due to a pecuniary interest in those properties. And then also, I will recuse myself on the 3rd page under the common victualler license, about 8 down, Harrington Healthcare System Inc. I need to recuse as I'm a board member of that entity. So, are there any others on the board that have to, or would like to do any recusals of any individual ones?
No. Are we going to be voting these in blocks or all as one full
We
list?
can, at the board's pleasure, whatever.
Because I would ask that if we are going to vote as all one, that we hold the license for Jocelyn House Inc. As a separate vote.
How about a motion to remove Jocelyn House from this list? If we could do that and vote on that separately?
Yeah.
I'll make
the
a
motion.
Okay,
Someone
second.
wants a second? So all those in favor of removing Jocelyn House
Inc.
from this list?
Yeah.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now we have the list in front of us excluding Jocelyn House.
I do have a question. So just Wing It is on here?
For a,
Common victory.
yeah, so just
Oh,
to.
for the
So the
food
restaurant.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear.
And the Lobster Nook will be doing a name change, doing that process, but right now we're gonna do a criminalize the Lobster Nook.
We're gonna try to talk him out of that name change.
That is under all alcohol?
All alcohol, yeah.
I'm just trying to find it.
Right now, they have a beer and wine. So they
Okay,
haven't
thank you.
been
It's-
approved for-
Oh,
There it is, lobster.
okay.
Oh, because they weren't open at, yeah.
And I noticed, Courtney, the Webster Finnecamp didn't have an address. We're gonna add that.
Yes, I do have it. It's 92 Douglas Road.
So we'll add 92 Douglas Road to our schedule.
So will that free up the wine and malt from Lobster Nook if?
Oh, if they, that one's approved, that,
Oh, and that's the one that may take,
there's actually two, so that one's probably more likely to get switched over. Because they will need to open and then apply to the ABCC, and that might be a faster process.
so it'd be possible, well, we've already voted on Wing It, but,
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a couple months at least.
okay. The licenses run out at the end of the year, correct? Yeah.
Yep, so these licenses are effective January 1st, and especially with regards to restaurants, it's important for them to get all their payments and taxes to be up to date, because otherwise, January 1st, they will not be able to operate without the license.
And Courtney's been very diligent about following up with these people and has gotten most of them to reply already. However, whatever motion you take, we ask that you make it contingent upon them being up to date with all their
Good
taxes and in good standing with the town. And as we get closer, if there are ones that are not in good standing and it's near the end of the year, we'll let you know which ones are at risk of not receiving their license in time.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve all of the entities listed here, listed under all of the separate categories. We have removed from that Jocelyn House. I've stated I have my 3 recusals. I don't know if anyone else has recusals.
No.
But I'll accept the motion with regard to that, if I could, please, for the approval of
I'll
all
make
of
the motion to approve all of the establishments on the 3 pages in this list for licenses, with the exception of Jocelyn House, Inc.
Do we have a
Second.
second? And as noted, I will recuse for Fresh Chef, DBA, Point Breeze, Wintiki, both because of a pecuniary interest, and Harrington Healthcare Systems because I'm a board member. Any further questions, discussion?
Do we have a second on that?
I
Thought I
second.
heard a
Oh,
second,
yeah.
yep.
Then just a quick question. Earl, do you just want to amend your motion for approving for the local licensing authority issued licenses for calendar year 2020?
Yes, yeah. I mean,
All right, that motion has been amended, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It's a unanimous vote. Next, we have Jocelyn House. We're going to discuss separately.
And Courtney provided a letter to you from Jocelyn House today. The letter stated that they are in process. They want to renovate the space so it can in the future be a place where they can serve alcohol. But it has not been active since, I believe, 2015.
And I think in the letter, which I believe was emailed today,
Yes.
indicated that it was because of the flooding that had occurred, those broken pipes, and they've rented it out to an escape room, and that would then, that term of the lease, I think, expires in
August.
January of 2020, or is it
August.
August.
It says August 2020.
Yeah.
For discussion, I know, I believe Courtney's had some comments from the state regarding the town on why this license is still being considered active, even though there's been no usage of it. The state does have specific regulations where if you have a liquor license, it either has to be actively used, you have to have a valid building permit. I know last year we voted to approve the renewal of the liquor license for the Jocelyn House Inc. because they had provided proof that the business was being actively marketed for sale. And seeing that I believe they do not have any open building permits, there's no other, they're not actively using it. The state doesn't allow what's known as pocket licenses, where people sit on a license without using it. So, given that information, I would make a motion to deny the renewal of the all alcohol liquor license for Jocelyn House Inc.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second for the purpose of discussion.
Okay, we have a second. I think with regard to discussion, we do have the letter. I would actually ask to have this put on our agenda for December and have Courtney and Doug talk to the owners to find out if they will pull a building permit. They have indicated their intention to renovate the place after the tenant leaves. My only concern would be, once you remove it, it's much harder then to get it back, and does it make sense for us to give them the additional 10
As you
months?
can see from the letter, this has been ongoing since 2014. We've renewed it every year since 2014, and it's never been effectively used.
I agree. I also understand that the property owners, there's been some health issues. They've also sold a lot of their properties in the past year, maybe year and a half. So I'm not sure in particular why this piece of property hadn't been sold. It might have been pulled out of that sale because of the condition of the building. I'm not aware of that. That's why I'm just suggesting we put this off till December, so we can get a little more information on it.
Right. We can reach out to the ABCC as well to get their opinion on whether they would consider a pocket license or not, or we could just talk to the owners and up to the board.
My only, again, under discussion, I'm just concerned that if we deny tonight, then that's over.
Yep.
Right.
That's a denial, and then it happens right away.
Right, and if we deny it, then they do have the right to appeal the denial to the ABCC. Also, that the property does fall in the slum and blight district. If there were, at some point, where if they were to seek a all alcohol license again, they could potentially apply for a slum and blight all alcohol if they were available, or they could apply for special act of legislation.
I have a question. Do we have the ability to just suspend it and not renew it, or is that not an option?
No, the ABCC, it's either you renew it or you
So
don't
it's either
renew
not.
it.
Okay, I was just curious if that was an option.
So I guess what I'll do is I'll make another motion to add this to the agenda for the December meeting so that we can get additional information
I'll
as
second
I've
that.
described.
Then I'll withdraw my original motion.
Thank you, Andrew. Which may very well, under discussion, because we do have a second, which may end up being what happens, I think, in December. But just for the sake of
Yeah, we'll
getting
be
more
in touch with
information.
the owners.
Any
Just
further?
for background purposes, in the past few years that this has been renewed, has there been this dialogue about
Last
the
year.
continuation? So I just kind of want to understand Andrew's perspective on this. Has this been an ongoing dialogue to deny this at some
Correct.
point?
In the past, they've, I believe, transferred the license between two different entities that they own, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
Wishing well, I think you might be. Yes.
Right, and
The-
last year
the-
they showed that they were actively marketing a property, it was actually the property across the street, but, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion to table this to the December meeting? If not, all those in favor of tabling, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? It's a unanimous vote. Okay, that takes us down to old business. I don't believe we have any other old business. And then the town administrator's report. Doug?
So I feel like we just met, but I guess it has been a couple weeks. So some of these are similar and just slight updates. So our holiday season starting. We have on December 7th the holiday bazaar as well as the tree lighting ceremony. So the bazaar is in the morning and the tree lighting ceremony starts at 6 p.m. that night. And then Winter Wonderland is the next Saturday from 5 to 8 p.m. And all those are here at the town hall and in the auditorium. And just a reminder that town hall closes on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving at noon. Then we'll reopen on Monday morning. I'm going to skip through some of these. If there are questions by the board on any of the other ones, feel free to jump in. But the police department has begun their coat drive, so that is for local residents that are in need. Are people interested in dropping off a coat, they can do it at the vestibule at the police station or bring it to the Winter Wonderland event. And I also like to point out that they're doing a Narcan training this Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. at the 10 Mechanic Street. That's the Opening the Word Peer Recovery Center. And then also the pumper engine was delivered it was now last week. So that was, it's a beautiful truck. We're excited to have that. Skipping down to the finances. Last week I met with local town administrators and managers to talk about potential opportunities for regionalization. We had some good dialogue, not anything that we're like, oh, that's an immediate grand slam, but we're working on some. And there's also some already existing regional groups that we're looking to potentially join to see if they're interested in expanding and if it makes financial sense for all parties. Also, under item F on page 2 there, talking about surplus properties, the water department, and actually the Water Sewer Commission has been talking about this quite a bit lately. The property on Park Street where the water tower is about 4 acres. When we look at it, certainly the water department is not in need of all 4 acres. So we have contacted our town engineer to discuss cutting off a portion of that and potentially selling it. So that would need a town meeting approval, but I think Earl wants to bring that before the board at a future meeting on his role as the Water and Sewer Commission. Moving on to economic development. We have under item D there's a new industrial packaging company moving into 5 Cudworth Road. That's the old sand building. That's kind of exciting. And then the Lobster Nook has confirmed that they will be reopening, and as we discussed, Just Wing It is trying to reopen as well. So that's both good news on those. And we have started our local holidays shopping program. So in partnership with the Business Alliance, there's cards. If you shop at a local place, you can get them punched, and then at the end there's a raffle for rewarding people that shop local. Under infrastructure, item A there, the water filtration plant does have water flowing through it. It's being tested. Everything is working out very well at the moment. It is actually probably ready to go live, but we didn't want to go live like the day before Thanksgiving and pushing water in through the system. So we're going to do it right after Thanksgiving, just so there's no emergency and people's mashed potatoes aren't ruined.
Doug, on the water filtration plant, so there is going to be some flow change in there, so there is the possibility that we are going to get some sediment released once that's put in. Do we have a plan to maybe we can let people know prior to when this is going to happen?
Yeah, so actually speaking with Greg, he's less concerned about it than we originally thought. Initially the flow is going to be low, so there's not going to be a lot of pressure behind it. And then also he said, well, there is some shift already because at night they switch it and it pumps from the other station. So I mean, yeah, if we blasted it right at the beginning, it could be an issue, but we're hoping that if we ease into it, it won't be a major issue.
And good move not to do it before Thanksgiving, just in case.
Yeah. Skipping down to number F there, the salt shed roof is currently being reshingled, so that's good. Item number 5 there, couple of things. The next meeting in December, we'll follow up on 2 of those, the wetland setback policy, and also Greg will come and give a little more detailed information about the IT security audit.
Doug, on that conservation planning ZBA, can we make the topic a little broader, just in the sense of not just the setback policy, but just maybe some ideas and discussion on how we as our 4 boards might be able to, better work together?
Yep, that would be.
If we could do that, so we can always improve.
Yes. And then under item 6, the Selectmen office hours, I think we have scheduled, is it Earl or who's up next Monday? Or someone?
Well, you just did it, right?
Yeah.
Just did it.
Done it before.
Yeah, I can certainly be there
Okay.
before. Make sure I put it in my calendar.
And like we'd mentioned before,
Unless Mr. Jolie would like to
jump in.
jump in.
Yeah, I
It's
can,
up-
I
it's
can
up to you.
take Monday the 24th, that's not a problem.
Is it Monday the 24th or the 25th?
It
Next
would be Monday
Monday.
the 25th.
Oh,
Monday the 25th.
my bad.
Yeah.
Monday the
25th.
25th.
And we
Would you
have.
like to, Andrew?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
take Monday.
That's great, thank you.
And we posted it as a regular agenda, so it should show up on the main calendar.
Okay, good.
And then we have it on our Facebook as a scheduled thing to come up. So hopefully it's advertised a little bit more and someone comes out.
So for
Yeah.
our next one in December, if we can make it Christmas and we can assign Mr. Bork to it, seeing as how he's not here. I could mute him right now.
Christmas Eve, yeah.
Just kidding, we'll take that up. All right. Anything else, Doug? Your
No,
report?
I did update the committee openings on the website, and I've talked to the local paper to have a monthly, just ongoing ad to encourage people to come in and apply for committee openings.
Are we gonna get that long sought after report? that
So I
indicates
gave it to,
who's on what board and when their terms expire and?
yep, the Personnel Advisory Board received it last week and approved it, so it will, in December, we'll have to approve it.
You're meeting that goal just before you're in, that's great.
And we had also talked about the policy review
Yep,
for the.
that was, I'm hoping to have at least, in a perfect world, I'd like to have all of the existing policies in a better format, and then also have suggestions on some minor changes to have the board consider. A couple other things. So we've discussed a few correspondences with Mass DOT. One regarding Exit 2 and their process and timeline. So I've been in contact with them, and they had a new engineer assigned to the project. They just, in October, completed the 25% design, and their next step is to hold a public hearing. And I've reached out to them and said I'm more than happy to coordinate that on their behalf here in town. And originally, I thought we probably didn't need a letter from the selectmen and from
Chief?
The chief and from our local representatives. But at this point, they're a little slower moving than I had hoped, so I think it does make sense. So in the next week or so, we'll have a draft and have the chairman and the chief of police and Representative McKenna and Senator Fatman sign that and send it off.
We can
And
probably add the fire chief and Webster EMS chief as well.
Yeah, and a little bit similar, we changed the speed limit signs downtown, but we are getting ghosted by the person who approves the speed limit changes at Mass DOT, so we'll draft another letter for the board to sign. They have not been as responsive as we would have hoped, so.
Any,
Sorry, were we meeting with FinCom at the next meeting at 5 o'clock?
We'll have to coordinate the times on that, because we did originally schedule a joint meeting with Finance Committee and School Committee for that night as well. Maybe we can do that later then. But,
We can coordinate that.
yeah,
We don't have
a
to
good
decide
point,
that
that
tonight.
it'll be another busy night.
Thank you for reminding us, Courtney. Any further questions for Doug on his report? If not, I'll accept the motion to accept Doug's report.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of accepting the town administrator's report, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's a unanimous vote. We have consent items here. We had talked earlier about having Tim made as an alternate for Doug for the Mass Strategic Health Group, so I would accept a motion with that regard if I could.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? It's a unanimous vote. And then, last item on the consent items, vote to petition the state legislature for a special act to grant an additional license for the sale of all alcohol beverages to be drunk at the premises of the Rose Room, 4 East Main Street, Webster, Mass. This item was approved at town meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve petition to the state legislature.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That is a unanimous vote. And before we have our next meeting date note there, I did want to mention that I would like to offer a moment of silence if we could. Ernie Dumont passed away. He's worked at, our polls and our elections for many years, and he passed away last week. And his services were this Friday, so if we could have a moment of silence for Ernie and for his wife Lisa and the family, please. Thank you very much. With that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Don, thank you. Keep the snow up in Maine.